The winning blueprint presents.
Draft Zone.
Welcome to the Draft Zone. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the draft game. 32 teams, over 500 players to pluck from, one draft. How is your team going to do? Only here to talk about the first round as it pertains to the Oakland Raiders. They hold the number 3 pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, so we'll be looking at prior history of the 3rd overall selection in the draft from years 2000 to 2012. We'll be looking at Raiders draft history in the first round from years 2000 to 2012 to kind of get an indication as to how the Raiders will do in the upcoming draft. Now, the past isn't always a good indicator of what's going to occur in the future, but it does give you some precedents that has been set, things that you can look back on and say, hey, these mistakes were made. Let's not be doomed to repeat the past by making the same mistakes that other teams have, including ourselves. In this case, the Raiders have made plenty of mistakes drafted. We'll get to those in a second. But let's look at the draft history of the 3rd overall selection in the first round from years 2000 to 2012. We'll grade it out, and we use a baseball system in the draft game. So when you grade out a player, it's either a single, double, triple, home run, or the occasional strikeout. And we're talking about the Raiders, you're going to get a few strikeouts. But this is my list that I've compiled of every single first round draft pick over the last 13 years in the draft, years 2000 to 2012. We'll be talking about the number 3 overall selection in those years. Let's look at those picks over the years and grade them out. So you look at the first pick in 2000, Chris Samuels, number 3 pick to the Washington Redskins. Solid pick. Had he played longer, possibly a Hall of Famer, but he did not. Spinal stenosis ended his career abruptly. He's a triple. Good start to this list if you are a Raiders fan. You start out with a triple right off the bat, Chris Samuels, year 2000. Look at 2001, Gerard Warren. He's a single. Never did anything really noteworthy in his career, but he hung around for an awfully long time. Single for Gerard Warren. You look at the next player up in 2002. It's Joey Harrington. And Joey, to his credit, he went up. He was scrappy. He gave it all he had. He swung the bat, fouled off a few pitches. He was pesky. But he got the count to 3-2, and he decided not to offer at a pitch that he thought was a little outside. It was a beautiful pitch, painted the black part of the plate, an 89-mile-an-hour fastball that was perfectly placed on the outside corner. And, of course, Joey goes down with it. He looks it all the way through because he's trying to give off the illusion that it's not a strike. But, of course, the umpire is not falling for it. Strike 3! Joey is out. That is a strikeout. Joey Harrington did not have a good career in the National Football League. Hence, he is a strikeout at the number 3 spot in 2002. You look at 2003, and you hit gold here in the next 2 years at the 3 slot. In 2003, the Texans take Andre Johnson. We know the career that he's having, potentially a Hall of Famer. That's a home run. And so there's no doubt about it. Andre Johnson, a.k.a. Dre, is a home run. You go to 2004, another no-brainer, another home run. And again, chicks dig the long ball. Larry Fitzgerald to the Arizona Cardinals in 2004 is definitely, without a doubt, a home run. Tape shot measure for Larry Fitzgerald at 2004. Arizona Cardinals really hit it big. You look at 2005, Braylon Edwards. Man, did his career start with a bang or what? This looked really promising. Him and Derek Anderson hooking up. You thought maybe they were on to something. You thought Braylon Edwards had a very promising career in front of him. It really went downhill from there. He did have one good season with the Jets. They went to the postseason, went to the AFC Championship game. Never really ascended to that height again. Braylon Edwards, as much as I want to give him a double, he's a single. Not enough consistency from Braylon Edwards for me to give him anything other than a single. You look at the next guy up. In 2006, it's Vince Young. And another guy with a very promising start to his career. First season goes 8-8, has the touchdown in overtime against the Texans where he scrambles, wins the game. It just looks like Vince Young has it. We don't know what it is, but it looks like he has it. But he doesn't. And so he had to sneak a bunt down the third base line to get down and get that single. But he got it. And Vince Young is a single in 2006. You look at 2007. Another home run. Joe Thomas, the tackle in Cleveland. Here's a guy, what can you say? Epitomizes what a left tackle should look like in this league. He gets it done time and time again. You don't hear his name called that often, and for good reason. That's what you want out of your left tackle, a guy that's awfully quiet. He keeps it quiet in his neck of the woods. You don't hear his name for holding or false start or legal procedure. And you don't hear the guy that he's blocking's name either, because that guy isn't doing anything. It's always quiet in Joe Thomas's neck of the woods, except for when he swings that bat and knocks it out of the park. And that's what Joe Thomas has done at the number 3 selection in 2007. You look at 2008, Matt Ryan. And I hold quarterbacks to a higher standard. If you don't have a Super Bowl title, you can go no higher than a triple, and that's why Matt Ryan is a triple. Has had a tremendous career to this point, but has not gotten to a Super Bowl. And of course, if you haven't been there, you can't win one. And so he is a triple. Matt Ryan in 2008 is a triple. You look at 2009. Tyson Jackson. Boy, do I want to give this guy a strikeout in the worst way. But I'm going to give him a pass. I don't even want to call what he's done to this point a single. Let's call it a walk. He's drawn a walk. He got to first base either way. It's a single for Tyson Jackson, but he's skating on thin ice in Kansas City. You look at 2010, and it's Gerald McCoy. And he's been extremely solid in his career to this point. Wanted to give him a double. Just made the Pro Bowl. It seems like he's starting to get it in Tampa Bay, but can't quite give him a double just yet. We'll stick with the single variety for Gerald McCoy. It's a single for Gerald McCoy in Tampa Bay. You look at the 2011 selection of Marcell Dareus. Here's a guy that I think is playing extremely well in Buffalo. Not a lot is made of what he's doing in Buffalo because it's Buffalo. And so quietly, I think he was able to leg out a double. He had to slide head first. It was a close play at the bag, but he made it in safely. Marcell Dareus is a double in Buffalo. So you go to 2012, and it's Trent Richardson at the third selection. You could argue that it's a single, but when a guy gets double digits in touchdowns, yes, the average was in the gutter. Less than 4 yards a carry. He did not eclipse 1,000 yards, but 11 touchdowns speaks for itself. And he caught the football very well out of the backfield. Trent Richardson right now is a double for the Cleveland Browns. And so you put all of those totals together, and Joey Harrington being the only strikeout in this group, a couple of home runs. Matter of fact, I think we had a few. You had 2 receivers and Joe Thomas. So you're thinking maybe these guys can stretch it out, leg it out, get to a triple. They rounded the bag, and then they realized halfway to third that, hey, I better turn around or I'll get gunned at third. It's a solid double for these third overall selections over the years from 2000 to 2012. They grade out at a double when you average them up. And so now let's look at the Raiders and their draft history, and let's see what history says the Raiders will probably do with the number 3 overall selection in the 2013 draft. So let's start with the year 2000 for the Raiders. Your first round selection in that draft was Sebastian Janikowski. Who says that kickers don't matter? For a long time, Seabass was the best player on the Oakland Raiders team. Now, when you're talking about a kicker, that's never a good thing. But at times, he was the only guy you could count on for points. And I tell you what, Sebastian Janikowski is a really good kicker. He holds the record in the NFL for the longest field goal, tied with, other guys, Jason Elam and all those guys who have knocked it home from 63. But I think he's a really good kicker. And for that, he gets a triple. Because not only has he been really good, and he's had his struggles here and there, but he's been really good for a long time. He's been really consistent for the Raiders. And it's saying a lot for a team that at stretches were really bad, and he was the only hope on that football team. And so you got to give Sebastian Janikowski a triple. You look at Derek Gibson, Gibby. I wanted to strike Ironhead out. I really wanted to give Hammerhead a strikeout, but I couldn't do it. He was solid on special teams. He gave you a little something at the safety position. You get a single out of Gibby. So you go to 2002, and you look at Philip Buchanan. Solid. Nothing special. Gave you a little something on special teams, but was never the cornerback you wanted him to be. Was always afraid to stick his nose in the fray. Was quick to give you an ole. You get a single out of Philip Buchanan. Also in that draft, Napoleon Harris. Good old Nap. That Senator Nap to you now. But as a Raider, as a Chief, as a Viking, solid single for Napoleon Harris. So you go to 2003. And the Raiders had another 2 picks in the first round, as they did in 2002. This time they spent their 2 picks on Nnamdi Asomugha. Now we all know how good of a career he's had. Of late, it's been a struggle. But in Oakland, when no one was watching, when no one was paying attention, he was balling. So he gets a triple. You look at the guy that they drafted the very next pick, and he was anything but a baller in Tyler Brayton. I want this guy to strike out in the worst way. But he lasted long enough in the league and was productive enough to warrant a single. So Tyler Brayton is a single. So you go to 2004. Robert Gallery. And if his career ended in Oakland, he would have been a strikeout. But he went to Seattle. He kind of salvaged his career. And so, hence, Robert Gallery is a single. Now, keep in mind, it's not just the Raiders drafting this player or how he was drafted. It's how this player ends up panning out, whether it's with your team or not. We're just looking at the body of work of the player. Because you draft a player and maybe he's good in 7 years instead of 3. He ends up being good with another team. May not have turned out to be the best for you, but we're just looking at the player himself, not the actual pick for the team. So keep that in mind. So you look at 2005, Fabian Washington. He took a hack at the first pitch. He went up first pitch swinging. Fouled it off. Didn't touch the ball again. Struck out. Fabian Washington, absolute strikeout in Oakland and in his career. He went on to Baltimore, did nothing there. Strikeout for Fabian Washington. Your first strikeout on the board. The first of what's many to come for the Oakland Raiders. You look at 2006, Michael Huff. And I actually like Michael Huff. I actually think that he's been a really consistently solid safety. Never done anything noteworthy. Never been extremely flashy. And for how high you drafted him, you don't want to hear that. But at the end of the day, you could count on Michael Huff to lace him up, step out on the field, and give you everything he's got. He's a double, in my estimation. And you could look at it and think, it's a little high for this guy. And you may be right, but looking at the production and looking at the quality of what he was able to do for you, it was just solid all the way through. There was never a drop-off. There wasn't a season where he didn't show up. He'll get you 1 to 3 interceptions every year, make his share of tackles, and he'll suit up for 14 to 16 games every year. That's solid in my book. I think Michael Huff has been solid. Probably wasn't what you thought you were getting with the number, let's say 6, 7, 8 overall pick in the draft in 2006, but he's been solid. It's a double for Michael Huff. Look at 2007. Oakland Raiders fans want to forget this draft, and for good reason. Maybe the biggest bust in NFL history was drafted in 2007 with the number 1 overall selection. Of course, I'm speaking of Jamarcus Russell. I don't have to tell you what he stepped up to the plate and did. I'll just move on and save you the grief and the reminder of what this guy has been to your franchise and how he is viewed around the league. I'll just move on in good faith that you know what he did. Darren McFadden in 2008. This guy is an enigma. If he can stay healthy, I don't see why he couldn't be a triple. But he hasn't been healthy. And so you're thinking I'm going to tell you that he hit a double, but I'm not. I'm going to tell you that he's a solid single. He rounded first base with a huge turn and then had to hurry back to first before he was thrown out. So he's a single. And I would love to give this guy a double. Because when he's on, man, is he one of the most explosive backs in the league or what? But how often is that? Not often enough for me to allow this guy to slide into second base safely. It's a single for Darren McFadden. You look at 2009, Darius Hayward Bay, DHB. One of my favorite Raiders to hate. I really did not like the pick. This has nothing to do with Darius Hayward Bay. More of an indication of how bad I thought this pick was by the Raiders. At 7, you were reaching, you were grabbing for something that wasn't there. I mean, if you wanted a receiver, Michael Crabtree was right there. Yes, he's not the fastest. He's not the prototypical Raider height, weight, speed guy. But Darius Hayward Bay, nothing about his game at Maryland screamed number 7 overall selection. And that's why I was hard on Darius Hayward Bay. But he played well enough to warrant a single. I won't treat the man that way and give him a strikeout. He was solid in Oakland, hence he gets a single. So you look at Rolando McClain, 2010. Ugh. What can I say? Rolando went up swinging the bat. Much like Fabian Washington, he went up, took a couple of hard cuts, fouled off a couple of balls. Hey, look, in his sophomore season, he put a charge into one. It hooked foul, though, man. And we all know what he did after that. He struck out. And so, that's it for the Raiders. He said, hey, wait, hold on. What happened to 2011 and 12? The Raiders didn't have any first-round picks in those seasons. So, there you have it. So, you average up what the Raiders have done since 2000, and you add it up. And boy, I tell you what, it was close. Raiders barely hit the ball down the third base line. Luckily enough for them, the third baseman down that line, little slow of foot. He had to barehand it. He put a charge into it, though. He threw it down that first base line and tried to gun the Raiders out. Luckily enough for the Raiders, they were left-handed, so they got to jump out of that box. And they were pretty fast. They ran down that line. They put their head down. They hit that bag. And you know, anytime you hit that bag and you turn around immediately to see what the umpire is doing, you know it's a close play at the bag. But you turned around to see the umpire say, safe. Raiders grade out over the 13-year period from 2000 to 2012 with a single. But barely. Now, what does that mean? This pick overall, over the years, that third overall selection, graded out at a double. The Raiders themselves, over that 13-year period, graded out at a single. So what does that mean? It means that most likely the Raiders are going to draft a guy here that's going to yield them a single or maybe a double. That's what history says you're supposed to draft with this pick. But I'm here to tell you that you need to buck that trend. Don't be a team that settles for a guy that's going to be solid, a double. If you're picking in the top 5, you should be looking to knock the cover off the ball. You should be looking for a home run. Maybe Sharif Floyd is that guy because that's who you're drafting. You're drafting Sharif Floyd. Unless some miracle happens and Deion Jordan is there at 3, in that case, I say I don't know how you don't take Deion Jordan. But I don't see Deion Jordan being there at 3. You go for the next best thing. I think that's Sharif Floyd for you. You take Sharif Floyd, you stick him in at defensive tackle. Is he a home run? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's a true difference maker that comes in, gets to the quarterback. I think he's going to be very stout against the run. He's going to play on the other side of the line of scrimmage. But is he going to get after the quarterback? That's what's going to separate him from a double, triple, or a home run. Because I think Sharif Floyd is definitely a single at worst. So can he excel to that next level? Because I think that's who the Raiders are going to draft at 3. We'll see. If history is any indication of what the Raiders are going to do here, he's going to turn out to be a solid player, much like a Michael Huff that never does anything extraordinary, just is extremely solid for 5 to 7 years for the Raiders before he moves on to another football team. That's not what you're looking for. Hit a home run. Get Sharif Floyd and have him pan out and be the guy that comes up and knocks it out of the park. We'll see if the Raiders can do that at 3, but that's it for the Oakland Raiders in the draft game.